Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and before we get into this episode brought to you by the Sports History Network, I wanted to tell you about another book giveaway that we have on the website. Our friend of the network, Timothy J. Brown, is giving away 5 copies of his latest book. This book is titled Hut Hut Hike, A History of Football Terminology. This book explores the history of football terminology by examining when and why more than 400 familiar words and expressions entered the game. By linking the game's evolution to changes in its language, readers learn the origins of first string, basic fundamentals, X's and O's, long snapper, and hundreds more of terms used in every football conversation or broadcast. Organized in easy-to-read, bite-sized chunks and filled with period images and illustrations, Hut Hut Hike tells football's history one word at a time. Now, to sign up for a chance to win your copy of the book, head to sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways.
Now it's time to take a sports break, a look at sports history on a daily basis. Hello, my friends of sports history. This is Darren Hayes of the Sports Jersey Dispatch podcast. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your place for all things great in sports history. And welcome to this sports break, the January 16th edition, as we will talk about some of the greatest athletes in their milestone moments that occurred on January 16th and talk about the uniform numbers that they would have wore when that happened. So before we get into that, let's make sure you're aware of our newsletter. We have a newsletter each and every day, 6:30 a.m. It comes out to your email inbox, and it's so easy to sign up for. Go to the show notes of this very podcast or the top of jerseydispatch.com and sign up for emails now. Now let's get to those uniform numbers for January 16th. The numbers are 6, 84, 9, 22, 24, 32, 30, 12, 31, and number 13. January 6, 1905, going in the Wayback Machine, and it's at the Stanley Cup series of that 1905 era. The games were played at Days Arena in Ottawa, Ontario. The Ottawa Senators routed Dawson City from the Yukon 23-2 for a 2-0 series sweep. It's the most lopsided challenge playoff game in history. In the series, Frank McGee scored a remarkable 14 goals in that. I don't know if that'll ever be repeated in a Stanley Cup series. That's quite a few goals there. Now, January 16, 1952, Stan Musial and the U.S. Standard Board gave the okay on his salary to be raised to $85,000. The St. Louis Cardinal outfielder, who wore number 6 on his uniform, received the pay increase in the pay of $35,000 after a new salary stabilization policy was announced. The government decided that the club's payroll and not the individual player would be the measuring stick in the regulated formula, and that really set history and really set it on the course that we're seeing in today's results. January 16, 1955, the 5th NFL Pro Bowl game was played at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and the Western Conference defeated the Eastern Conference 26-19. The most valuable player of that game was number 84, Billy Wilson of the San Francisco 49ers, who played wide receiver. And on January 16, 1960, right wing Gordie Howe of the Detroit Red Wings, wearing the number 9 on his sweater, scored an assist and a goal to move into the top spot in the NHL's all-time leading scorer category. In his 888th game, his 947 career points slid him past Maurice Richard of Montreal. January 16th, 1962, it was Bob Pettit who registered an NBA All-Star Game record 27 rebounds in a game as the West team defeated the East 150-130. Pettit represented the St. Louis Hawks that season and wore the number 9 on his jersey. Speaking of the NBA, how about 1963 on the 16th of January, and a man named Bill Russell who wore number 6 with the Boston Celtics? Well, he was named the most valuable player of the NBA All-Star Game that year as the East won the game 115-108. 2 years later, in 1965, it was the 4th American Football League All-Star Game at Jeppsum Stadium in Houston, and the Western Division defeated the Eastern Division 38-14. Now, there were 2 most valuable players selected. One on offense, one on defense. The offensive one belongs to Los Angeles Chargers running back number 22, Keith Lincoln. And on defense, Denver Broncos defensive back number 24, Willie Brown. And speaking about Browns, well, there was a Cleveland Brown that ended up winning the most valuable player of the 1966 NFL Pro Bowl. And this is January 16th of that year. And Jim Brown was his name. He wore the famous number 32. And he was that most valuable player in the NFL's version of the All-Star Game, the Pro Bowl. January 16th, 1966, that same day, Chicago Blackhawks right wing Bobby Hull, who wore number 9, scored 4 goals in his 17th career hat trick in a 6-5 loss to the New York Rangers. He became the first player in team history to score 300 goals. Meanwhile, across town, Chicago is granted an NBA franchise on January 16, 1966, and they would soon call themselves the Bulls. They became the 3rd NBA franchise in the city after the Chicago Stags in the late 40s and the Chicago Packers/Zephyrs, who now have become the Washington Wizards, also moved and packed out of there. Now, January 16, 1968, the 21st NHL All-Star Game. The Maple Leaf Gardens, the Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the All-Stars 4-3. Most valuable player of the game was Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender number 30, Bruce Campbell. In 1972, on the 16th of January, we had Super Bowl VI at Tulane Stadium in New Orleans. It was the Dallas Cowboys defeating the Miami Dolphins 24-3. Most valuable player selected was Dallas quarterback number 12, Roger Staubach. In 1982, on January 16th, Edmonton's rookie goaltender Grant Fuhr, number 31 on his sweater, had his 23-game unbeaten streak end with a 7-1 Oilers defeat in Toronto. January 16, 2019, the records were set in bunches in the Golden State Warriors versus the New Orleans Pelicans game. In the first quarter, Golden State broke 2 franchise records. Get this, they had 10 3-point field goals on the way to a best 51 points in a period. Now, Golden State guard Steph Curry, number 30, became the first NBA player in history to hit 8 or more 3-point field goals in 3 consecutive games. Now, Curry went 9 of 17 from beyond the arc in the Warriors' 147-140 victory over New Orleans that day. And there was yet another record when the two teams combined for a record 43 3-point field goals in that contest. Yeah, a lot of rain coming from beyond New York. And finally, we got to January 16, 2019. The Houston Rockets guard number 13, James Harden, became the first player to score 55 or more points in back-to-back NBA games since Wilt Chamberlain did it back in 1962. Harden scored 58 points in the 145-142 overtime loss to the Brooklyn, who remarkably, he would be playing for the next season. He went 18 games with 30-plus points for the Rockets in 2019. So that is your sports history for this January 16th. Your little sports break, so you can take some time from whatever you're doing today. Hope you're enjoying the holiday if you have it. If not, if you're working, well, hang in there and listen to some more podcasts. We got plenty of them over at sportshistorynetwork.com. Thousands of hours of download, family-friendly, and boy, are you going to listen to all these different genres of sports history with these great hosts and guests that appear on some great stories of sports history. Also, you can go to our websites, pigskindispatch.com and jerseydispatch.com for all your great sports history. Until tomorrow, everybody, have a great sports history day. This penalty kill is almost over. I got to get back out on the ice. But thanks again for joining us for another great edition of Sports Jersey Dispatch Podcast. We'll see you tomorrow. We invite you to check out our websites, jerseydispatch.com and pigskindispatch.com. Not only see the daily sports history, but to experience the preservation of great events and people that play the games. Find us on Pigskin Dispatch. It's also on social media outlets of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel. You get all your daily sports history. Pigskin Dispatch is happy to be associated with the Sports History Network, the sports headquarters of yesteryear, found at sportshistorynetwork.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.